Thank you, Speaker. My question's for the Premier. This week, the Ontario trial lawyers released a report revealing a disturbing trend at the Licensed Appeal Tribunal. In 2023, adjudicators sided with insurance companies over injured people a whopping 90% of the time. So does this government really believe that 90% of those injured in an accident don't deserve the help they paid their insurance companies for, or is something else happening at the lab?
To reply, the Attorney General.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I look forward to being able to address this. It's quite interesting. The Ontario Trial Lawyers Association are a very important part of our justice ecosystem, and they've done reports over time. But what I can tell you, pulling from that report, in 2017, when the Liberals were in charge, I was going to say running the province, Mr. Speaker, but there wasn't much happening. But there were 367 decisions coming out of the Licensed Appeal Tribunal. Well, I can tell you now there are 300% more happening, Mr. Speaker. When we came to government, Mr. Speaker, we were asked to deal with the backlog in the Licensed Appeal Tribunal, and I can tell you we have achieved that. We have dealt with the backlog, and we are meeting our targets, Mr. Speaker. And the NDP and the Liberals were saying, you got to deal with backlog, deal with backlog. So we did, and we got to balance, Mr. Speaker. Now they're asking us to interfere in independent decision-making by a tribunal, Mr. Speaker. That we will not do.
Supplementary question.
Speaker, 90%. But it gets worse. That same report by the Ontario trial lawyers found that a major insurance company hired an adjudicator while they were still working at the tribunal. Rather than immediately resign due to conflict of interest, this adjudicator continued to work for the tribunal for months. And during that time, this adjudicator sided with insurance companies, including their new boss, over injured people 100% of the time. So, what is this government willing to do to ensure that injured people finally receive fair justice when going up against big insurance companies at the Licensed Appeal Tribunal?
Members, please take their seats. And the Attorney General.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And I'll tell you what the government is prepared to do. The government is prepared to let an independent tribunal be independent, Mr. Speaker. We receive recommendations for appointment from an independent process. We process those appointments. They are administered independently, Mr. Speaker. And if there is a concern with an individual adjudicator or an individual decision, we maintain an appeal structure, Mr. Speaker. And so we want to make sure that the initial hearing is heard by somebody who is appointed through an independent process, who hears matters through an independent process, who has an ability to do appeals if the decision doesn't appear fair to either party, Mr. Speaker. And that's what we'll continue to do, Mr. Speaker. We will put more and more resources in as we have, Mr. Speaker, and I would welcome the support of the NDP and the Liberals as we put tens of millions of dollars into the tribunal system, Mr. Speaker, but to date they have supported none of it.